The Liberty Civic Arena in Detroit was buzzing. Flags hung from the rafters, red hats flooded the aisles, and the lights pulsed like a concert before the main act. It wasn't a concert, though. It was another Trump rally, loud, calculated, and running like a well-oiled political theater. His base was ready. Chants echoed. Vendors were selling everything from foam fingers to "Make America Fear Again" hoodies. Backstage, Donald Trump was reviewing talking points, half listening to his own hype reel playing over the speakers. He adjusted his cufflinks with the confidence of a man who thought nothing could shake the room he built. But something was coming. 3 rows from the press box, unnoticed by security, sat a man in a dark gray coat, hoodie tucked low. He wasn't surrounded by handlers or cameras. He sat like a guest. Calm. Intentional. Denzel Washington. He hadn't been on any list, and no one in Trump's team knew he'd be there. No social media post. No press release. Just him. Watching. Trump took the stage with his signature smirk, basking in the roar. "You're all here because you love this country, unlike some people in Hollywood," he chuckled, sending the crowd into predictable laughter. That line should have floated past unnoticed. But Denzel's head lifted slightly. As Trump launched into his familiar rhythm, immigration, inflation, media lies, Denzel stood. He didn't raise a fist. Didn't shout. Just stood. Straight. Present. And somehow, a few in the crowd noticed. Phones shifted. Whispers spread. From the stage, Trump spotted him. His jaw tightened. The teleprompter meant nothing now. "Look at that," Trump said, voice sharp. "Another actor who thinks he's a savior." "Sit down, Denzel. This is real America, not a movie set." That's when it happened. Denzel didn't flinch. He took a single step forward and spoke, voice low but slicing through the tension like a scalpel. "You talk tough," he said. "But you lead with fear. That's not strength. That's cowardice." Gasps rippled across the arena. Trump's face went rigid. "Security," he barked. "Get him out." But Denzel didn't move. Neither did the crowd. They were stunned. Because for the first time in years, someone called out Trump to his face, without rage, without showmanship. Just truth. And the room felt it. Security froze. For a second, no one knew whether to act or wait. The arena, built to echo applause, instead swallowed silence. Phones were everywhere now, capturing not just Denzel, but the energy shift that you couldn't fake if you tried. Trump stepped forward, his hands raised in mock applause. "Wow. So brave. You showed up uninvited and disrespected a president in his own rally. Clap for the man who rehearsed that line in his bathroom mirror." A few laughs. Mostly from the loyal front rows. Denzel didn't even blink. "I didn't rehearse anything," he replied. "I came to listen. But I won't sit silent when fear is packaged as leadership." Trump leaned over the mic. "You think you're smarter than the millions of people in this room?" "No," Denzel said. "I think we deserve better than fearmongering and applause lines." The arena cracked, half with boos, half with uncertain murmurs. It was rare to see someone punch through Trump's wall of dominance without shouting. Without backing down. And without seeking approval. One of the security guards finally stepped toward Denzel, but hesitated. His eyes searched for a cue from Trump, who was now visibly rattled. Not angry, off balance. From the crowd, a man in his 50s, veteran cap on his head, arms crossed, stood up. "Let him speak," he called out. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight. Then another voice from the opposite side. "He's not yelling. He's not cursing. He's just talking. Let him talk." Trump whipped around. "This is my rally. Denzel took another step forward. He wasn't on the stage, but he didn't need to be. He had the room now, and everyone felt it. "You can own the stage," Denzel said. "But not the truth." That line hit like a drumbeat. People didn't cheer. Not yet. But the silence was no longer on Trump's side. He tried to pivot. "You come here with your movie star ego, trying to tell working Americans how to live?" Denzel raised a brow. "I came here as a man. A citizen. A father. Just like the people you keep promising to fight for, until the cameras stop rolling." That was it. The crowd stirred. Not a full rebellion. But something far more dangerous for Trump, doubt. And he knew it. Trump adjusted his mic, as if the issue was technical, not emotional. His face was tight, jaw clenched, trying to maintain command. "You're not even supposed to be here," he muttered. Denzel's tone stayed even. "That's the thing about truth. It doesn't need permission to enter the room." Somewhere near the middle rows, a woman in a red jacket whispered to her husband, "Did he just say that?" Her phone trembled in her hand. It was already streaming. Trump pointed down at Denzel. "You came in here with an agenda." "No," Denzel replied. "I came in here with a spine." That cut clean. A few claps rang out, isolated, nervous. But they spread. By the time the fifth person joined in, it was undeniable. Trump's expression shifted from smugness to unease. "You don't understand politics," Trump barked. "You understand scripts. Then you should have hired better writers," Denzel said calmly, eyes locked on Trump. "Because your script is fear, division, and distraction." The air crackled. This wasn't a debate, it was an unveiling. Trump walked away from the podium, trying to reset the moment. "What exactly are you accusing me of, Denzel? Being a bad guy for caring about my country?" Denzel didn't hesitate. "I'm accusing you of being afraid. Afraid of difference, afraid of dissent, and most of all, afraid of losing the applause." The audience was divided now, not just politically, but emotionally. Some were visibly uncomfortable, others captivated. In a quiet corner, a young Latino boy whispered to his mother, "Who is he?" She answered without turning her head, eyes fixed on Denzel. "Someone not afraid." Trump returned to the mic, "If you hate this country so much, why don't you leave?" That line, so often used to silence dissent, sounded hollow this time. Denzel let the words hang for a beat. Then responded, voice low and heavy. "I don't hate this country. I love it enough to speak the truth, even when it makes people like you uncomfortable." Silence again. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was focus. And the crowd? They weren't exploding yet. But the fuse was burning fast. You could feel it now, the shift. This wasn't the rally people came for. They came expecting a show, a series of jabs at the left, maybe a few laughs and a promise or two. But what they got was something else entirely, a confrontation with conscience. Trump stepped back from the podium, squinting into the lights, trying to reassert dominance. "You want a grandstand? Fine. Let's hear it. You've got 60 seconds, superstar. Make it count." He thought that would embarrass Denzel. That it would reduce him to a soundbite. Instead, it opened the floodgates. Denzel didn't move to the stage. He didn't need elevation to be heard. His voice carried weight, not just in tone, but in intent. "I was raised to believe courage wasn't about shouting," he began. "It was about standing when it's easier to sit. And telling the truth when it's safer to stay quiet." The arena fell still. The Trump flags weren't waving anymore. Phones stopped recording for a moment, not out of boredom, but awe. "You called me a coward?" Trump interrupted, visibly fuming. "No," Denzel answered. I called you afraid. And maybe it's time you asked yourself what you're so scared of. Trump blinked. Just for a moment. Enough for the cameras to catch it. You call yourself a fighter, Mr. President, Denzel continued. But what do you fight for, really? Yourself? The applause? The illusion of control? People weren't cheering yet. They were listening. Processing. Some folding their arms tighter, others slowly lowering their MAGA hats. Trump laughed nervously. He's preaching now. You want a pulpit, Denzel? Try Sunday morning. I'm not here to preach, Denzel said, calm as ever. I'm here to remind people that leadership without humility is just performance. And that was the line. A pocket of applause broke out from the left side of the arena. Then the center. Then the balcony. Not thunderous, but honest. Trump turned to his aides. One of them mouthed, "Let it go," but he waved them off. He couldn't. His show was being hijacked, and not with anger, but with clarity. I didn't come here to be the hero, Denzel said finally. I came because silence helps the wrong people win. And at that moment, something in the crowd cracked. Not just the mood. The loyalty. The arena hadn't exploded yet, but it was close. Trump gripped the podium, knuckles white. You think you're better than me, he snapped. I built this movement. You walked in here thinking your little speech would undo it? Denzel stood still, not a flicker of aggression on his face. I don't think I'm better than you, he said slowly. I think I'm freer. The line lingered like smoke in the air. The crowd didn't know what to do with it. Trump squinted. What does that even mean? It means I'm not chasing applause, Denzel replied. I don't need a crowd to tell me I matter. I don't need a stage to pretend I'm strong. I say what I believe, even when no one's clapping. That stung. You could feel Trump's instinct to lash out tightening inside him. You're just another Hollywood elite pretending to care. Flying private, living in mansions, lecturing working folks. You're a fraud, Denzel. You're fake. But Denzel didn't flinch. You mistake comfort for corruption. I didn't come here to defend wealth. I came here to remind people that truth sounds the same whether you whisper it from a street corner or say it on a screen. Trump scoffed, gesturing to the audience. These people came for me. Not for your TED Talk. Someone near the front row called out, yeah, but he's making more sense than you right now. Trump turned sharply. Who said that? A middle-aged black man stood up, hands in his pockets. Name's Tyrone. I voted for you. Twice. But this man just said what I've been feeling for months. Gasps. Trump's expression twisted. Fake plant. Set up. That's what this is. But it didn't matter anymore. The narrative was slipping. And Denzel? He wasn't pushing harder. He didn't need to. He had clarity on his side, the most dangerous thing in a room built on noise. Trump tried one last jab. You think your little moment here changes anything? I'm still the one they'll follow. Denzel nodded, almost solemn. Then I hope you give them something worth following. Because if all you offer is fear, eventually even your loyal ones will walk away. The applause now wasn't a burst, it was a build. Like something rising that couldn't be stopped anymore. The crowd wasn't fully his. But it wasn't fully Trump's either. And that's what made the former president sweat. Backstage, Trump's aides were scrambling. Phones out. Whispered huddles. Eyes darting between the stage and trending feeds. One in turn mouthed the word, viral, while scrolling through TikTok clips of Denzel's quiet defiance, already racking up views. But on stage, Trump tried to regain control the only way he knew how, volume. You want to come here and preach about fear? He growled, pacing now. You have no idea what I've sacrificed. You've never been under attack like I've been. Denzel tilted his head slightly, expression unreadable. Then, calmly. I've been black in America for 69 years. Trust me, I know what being under attack looks like. That line didn't just land. It thundered. A stunned hush swept the arena. Some gasped. Some exhaled sharply. A few stood, not clapping, just acknowledging. Trump's face flushed. He leaned into the mic, voice rising. You don't get to use race to hide from truth. Denzel's voice didn't rise to meet him. It dropped, low and firm. I'm not hiding. I'm standing. That's what you don't understand. You think power is about drowning people out. But real power is being heard without shouting. The crowd was no longer divided by party lines. It was divided by energy, those clinging to old noise, and those leaning towards something quieter, but heavier. A college-aged girl in a denim jacket stood up mid-tier. Why is he making more sense than half the politicians I've ever heard? Someone next to her murmured, because he's not trying to win. He's trying to wake people up. Trump leaned on his podium now, breathing heavier. You done? He asked, the sarcasm paper-thin. I didn't come here to be done, Denzel answered. I came to start something. And just like that, the momentum flipped. The cameras didn't know who to focus on anymore. The crowd wasn't chanting. They were watching. Listening. And for Trump, that was the most dangerous shift of all. They weren't chanting his name. They were thinking. Trump laughed, short, forced. You're just an actor, he said, waving his hand like swatting a fly. You memorize lines for a living. What do you know about real leadership? Denzel didn't blink. I know the difference between leading and performing, he said. And I know when someone's confusing the two. The crowd reacted, half cheers, half murmurs. It was no longer a rally. It had become something else, a reckoning. Trump stepped forward, hands gripping the podium. You don't represent America. Denzel took a breath. I don't need to. I represent myself. And I trust Americans enough to listen and decide for themselves, without being spoon-fed fear. Trump's jaw tightened. So now you're the brave voice of the people? No, Denzel said. I'm just one voice. But you seem terrified of it. The room pulsed. You could feel the balance tipping. Every phrase Denzel delivered was like cutting a thread Trump had carefully woven. Someone from the far back shouted, "Let him finish." Trump's eyes darted to security, again. Why is he still here? He barked. But the guards didn't move. They were watching too. Even they knew, you don't drag a man out when he's saying what the room needs to hear. Denzel turned to the crowd now, not Trump. Ask yourselves this, he said. Why is it so dangerous for someone like me to speak, unless there's truth in what I'm saying? There was no microphone drop. No walk-off moment. Just a stare. And the silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was undeniable. The silence was deep now, the kind that isn't empty, but full. Full of doubt, full of reckoning, full of questions that couldn't be unasked. Trump saw it. He wasn't just losing control of the room, he was losing the room itself. You think you're some kind of truth-teller, he snarled, voice cracking at the edges. You walk in here uninvited and hijack my stage, my audience, my moment. It was never yours, Denzel said, softly but firmly. This country doesn't belong to a man with a mic. It belongs to the people willing to listen. That hit harder than Trump expected. Even his diehard supporters weren't chanting anymore. They were shifting in their seats, rethinking, re-seeing. A teenager in a red hat looked up from his phone, whispering to his dad, "He's kinda right." A woman with a flag pin clutched her purse tighter, not in fear, but confusion. Everything was off script now. And Trump hated it. "You're manipulating this crowd," Trump said, desperation leaking into his tone. "This isn't strength, it's theater." Denzel turned to him slowly. "Then why does your act feel so empty right now?" The entire center row gasped. A cameraman zoomed in on Trump's face, the flush creeping up his neck, the sweat glistening under the stage lights. He looked less like a commander and more like a man who'd just realized the spotlight wasn't his anymore. Someone shouted from the balcony. "He's not afraid to speak." "Why are you afraid to answer?" Trump pointed toward the sound. "Security, now. That's enough." But again, no one moved. Even the guards knew what would happen if they tried to silence what had clearly become a moment. Denzel stepped forward, not on the stage, but close. He didn't need elevation, he already had the room. "I didn't call you a coward because I disagree with you," he said quietly. "I called you a coward because when faced with truth, all you offer is noise." And for the first time, Trump didn't respond. He simply looked out into the crowd. And he saw doubt staring back. Trump stayed frozen, his eyes scanning the room like a man watching a tide turn against him. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Because what could he say? The crowd wasn't booing. They weren't yelling. They were just watching. Measuring him. Measuring Denzel. Measuring the moment. Denzel didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He simply stood with the weight of truth on his shoulders and the calm of a man who didn't need to raise his voice to be heard. Then, from the far right section of the convention hall, a voice rang out, older, raspy, unmistakably Southern. "I didn't drive 5 hours to be lied to again." Heads turned. It was a veteran. Army jacket, silver hair, front row. He stood tall, looking not at Denzel, but directly at Trump. "I voted for you," he said, firm. "Believed you. Defended you. But this man? He just gave me 10 minutes of truth without screaming once. That's strength. You forgot what it looks like." Trump's face dropped. A few scattered claps. Then more. And more. Until the convention center wasn't cheering for Denzel, it was responding to something deeper. Something older than politics. Dignity. Trump gripped the podium, knuckles pale, voice low. "You're all fools if you think he's one of you." And then, finally, Denzel spoke again. Quiet, steady. "I'm not trying to be one of you. I'm just trying to remind you who you were, before the shouting, before the anger, before all of this became about loyalty to a man instead of loyalty to the truth." Someone whispered, "Damn." Phones were out again. Not for rage clips, for history. Because what was happening now wasn't a trend. It wasn't a headline. It was a moment people would remember, where a man without a campaign stood in front of a man who built his name on applause. And stole the room with silence. Denzel didn't linger. He gave one last look across the room, not triumphant, not smug, just full. Full of conviction. Full of everything he hadn't needed to yell to make clear. Then he stepped back. Not off a stage, because he never climbed it. He never needed to. He walked down the aisle the same way he came in, steady, composed, untouched by the chaos. Trump stood still behind the podium, but the mic in front of him felt colder now, heavier. The crowd wasn't heckling or clapping. They were digesting. They were deciding. And he wasn't the one guiding that decision anymore. Backstage, aides scrambled to control the narrative. Put out a statement. Call it a publicity stunt. Frame it as disrespect. But the footage had already gone global. You can't spin something that people already felt. Later that night, Denzel sat at a small kitchen table back in his neighborhood. No cameras. No aides. Just him and a notebook. No speech, no plan. Just quiet. His phone buzzed non-stop. Clips aired across cable news, social media, live streams. But one message stood out. You didn't try to win us over. You just told the truth. That's what won us. He read it twice. Then again. Across the country, reactions split. Some called him brave. Some called him deluded. But nobody ignored him. And that was the point. Because in a world trained to only hear the loudest voice, Denzel had changed everything by being the clearest. If this story made you pause, question, or even feel something real, don't scroll past. Subscribe to Power Stories, where we don't yell to be heard. We write the moments that silence the room. Let your voice be part of the change. Oncoming fist, drop a comment. Bell hit subscribe. And remember, silence isn't weakness. Sometimes, it's the sharpest truth of all.